Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. 2-0 on the season. It makes you feel good unless you actually watch the game, and then you should be like, it's good to win the squeaker. I mean, I'm not sure how you blow three-goal leads and have to go to Jordan Martinook in the bottom of the ninth, but I don't know, Ray. I mean, I guess I feel good, right? I mean,
yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Well, as is always the case, you and I stay well connected during the games watching it. And how many times yesterday in a game that really should have been out of reach were you and I just frustrated beyond, we can't share any of the texts that we shared between each other
family
on a family show like this. But yeah, it was a struggle, but a win is a win is a win. In the end, that's really all that matters. And all that matters in the Storm Cellar is having guests join us in the comfort of the cellar. And this time around, someone who's been with us outside on the message boards for a long, long time, long before we ever did this, Andy, he was with us in the message boards. He's followed the team. He's right there in Raleigh. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. How
Absolutely.
are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's been a minute. We're going to jump right into it. And the way we run the Storm Cellar all the time, it's our belief that it's the fans that are that extra player on the ice helping fuel the team. And we want to know how you became a Caniac, how you jumped in. We want to hear your story. And so we turn the spotlight to you. Fire away, Andy. Tell us how it all began.
Well, I grew up in northern New Jersey, and I was a Rangers fan when I was a kid because when I was a kid, they were the only game in town, and they were on local TV a lot. And, my father wasn't a huge hockey fan, but in the winter, we would find the Rangers on TV. And to be absolutely honest, I'm still a little salty that they split up the goal a game line and traded Jean Rattel to the Bruins for Phil Esposito. Even though Esposito took them to the finals one year.
Yeah.
So, my father was a school teacher. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. So I never went to a hockey game until I was in college. Actually, no. The Boy Scouts took a trip to see the New York Golden Blades of the World Hockey Association at Madison Square Garden, their one and only year of existence before they moved to Cherry Hill and then into bankruptcy court. So that was my first hockey game. My first NHL game was Rangers Flyers in the 1979 playoffs at the Spectrum. I went to college at Villanova outside Philadelphia. Me and another Rangers fan found tickets on Ticketron, drove down to Philadelphia, which was only about a 45-minute drive, and were concerned with our seat location about sitting in the middle of a bunch of Flyer season ticket holders. But we were surrounded by Rangers fans, and the Rangers won that game 8-3 to close out the series with current Columbus Blue Jackets president John Davidson in goal.
Wow. That's awesome.
So, it's been a few years, y'all.
Way back machine. Yeah. That is a long time back.
Andy and Ray making me feel young. I appreciate it, y'all.
That's what we do.
Yep.
Fantastic. And even though you're surrounded by Rangers fans and stuff, you couldn't have felt safe. Could you have?
Well, I had to get in and out of the building.
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, at the time, I still don't, but I didn't have any Rangers gear, so they couldn't identify me.
There you go.
I was just some punk kid who was leaving the game with a smile on his face. So, walking back to my car. So, but from there, God, so then I went to a couple of Peterborough Pete's games.
Ooh,
So
OHL, nice.
yeah, OHL. So I was an auditor for a corporation that had an office in Peterborough, and I was doing an audit there. And there's nothing to do in Peterborough except drink and go to hockey games. So went to a couple of OHL games. Yeah, absolutely. Just give me a plastic cup full of Labatt's and I'm happy.
There you go.
So I got relocated to Raleigh before the Hurricanes did. Despite the physical proximity to the fairgrounds and Carter Finley and PNC Arena, never went to an Ice Caps game, and couldn't tell you why we never went. I can turn off of my street, turn right off of my street. The next turn I make in 20 minutes is to turn left into the PNC Arena parking lot. So, we're really close. We're really close to Dorton Arena, but we never went. So I just couldn't tell you why. My wife and her brother grew up outside Boston, both playing hockey when they were kids. My brother played in prep school in Vermont before he tore up his ACL, which in those days was a career ender. And, when the Hurricanes moved to North Carolina, we went to a couple of games in Greensboro. So,
Nice.
Greensboro was about an hour and a half drive. The first game we went to, coincidentally, when they were doing the mini mites on the ice at intermission, one of my youngest daughter's friends was playing.
Nice.
So
That's cute.
we hung out with him and his family during the game, and we just started going to games. Maybe, I don't know, in the Greensboro years we probably went to 10 a year, maybe. Back
that's
in those days.
Yeah, I was just going to say, going to 10, that's pretty impressive. You know what I mean? Like to make that trip is not easy, and every one of the players and coaches of the team themselves would tell you it was a hard slog. So you stepping up like that, going to 10 games, that's fantastic.
Well, it probably wouldn't have been that many, but my youngest daughter, kept winning free tickets. So
look at that.
Tickets are not hard to come by, that's for sure.
No, they were not.
As a poor college kid during those Greensboro years, we didn't pay to go to many. We got tickets through all kinds of radio stations, everything else. But yeah,
but you remember those days, Brad, when they had the slap shot booth set up in the lobby of the Greensboro Coliseum, and they had a contest where kids could take a slap shot, and then the hardest slap shot in each age group would win 2 free tickets to a future game. Well, there weren't a whole lot of 7 and 8 year old girls that were participating. So, my daughter would win 2 free tickets with a screaming 25-mile-an-hour slap shot.
Hey, bringing the heat.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm sure the community relations staff was tired of seeing me at the will call booth, but she just kept winning.
I bet they weren't at all. They were like, "Oh, Andy showed up. Good."
That's right.
Yeah. We have at least that's 3 more in the building for tonight.
Yep. Yeah. So
the worst part about Greensboro was the drive home. I don't know about you, but I mean, even today, between Greensboro and Raleigh, it's just a whole lot of empty. I mean, it's not as bad now with Morrisville and Cary and some of those places, getting bigger. But back then, you leave Greensboro and then it's just dark until you get to Raleigh. Yeah. There's just nothing.
And they were 7:30 starts.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not getting out of the building until almost 11. And, you're getting home after 11.
Mm-hmm.
And, the games that we went to, if God forbid we went on a weekday, the girls got used to doing their homework in the car.
Wow. I should have done that. That would have helped me in college.
They'd get home from their after school activities or whatever it is. And then it's time to pile in the car and head out there for the game. By the time I got home from work, my wife got home from work, you get your gear, you get in the car and you go.
Mm-hmm.
You had to
It's
be
a
so
commitment, you know.
relieved when they finally made the move to Raleigh. I mean, like, well,
Yeah.
like everyone, right? Like when they
Yeah.
moved
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
Raleigh, you know what? Just relief, right? For you?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. And like I said, it's a 20-minute drive. And well, it wasn't before they opened that Edwards Mill extension, but yeah. Um, but the first year in Raleigh, we didn't have season tickets. We went to, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 games.
Sure.
And then they were on the cusp of making the playoffs, and they announced that the playoff tickets were going to be at a reduced price. Like they were selling lower bowl tickets along the sidelines, in the priority lounge area they were going to be $35, and that was going to be the season ticket price for the following year. So the summer after the first season in Raleigh, that's when we signed up for season tickets, and we've been there ever since through 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're in our 5th different seat location.
Wow. Wow. And you survived through, you survived through the dark days,
Oh, God.
which,
Yeah.
that's impressive to stay, because there was a lot of suggestion that, I don't want to say fair weather fans,
Mm-hmm.
but that the attendance to games and stuff was going to just
Yeah.
drop, and did
Mm-hmm.
drop.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
for you to stick through it, that's impressive. And now you're reaping rewards,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah. Yeah. So, the 2002, I mean, the run to the 2001 playoffs was awesome. And, our seats back then were in the 7th row of section 117. So right inside the blue line at the shoot once end. So all 5 seat locations have been on that side because my wife likes to look at the bench instead of the penalty box. So Sammy Kapanen's pass to Brindamore that won that game in the playoffs, that pass came from 7 rows in front of me.
Love it.
And then, so the next year into the playoffs, my oldest daughter was a freshman in high school. And as the game is headed into the 3rd overtime, she asked if we were going home. And it's like, no, we're not going home.
Are you out of your mind?
Are you out of your mind? So, but then the following year, they started out good. My youngest daughter's birthday is right around Thanksgiving. We hosted Thanksgiving that year. So my brother and sister and father were here in town. We had a stormy birthday party at the arena the day after Thanksgiving. And the Hurricanes beat the Red Wings that night, backed by a Jan Lavic hat trick.
Wow.
That's a name I haven't heard
that is a name. Wow.
Back then.
Fantastic. That's fantastic.
But Weeks got knocked out of the game on a dirty hit from either Draper, Maltby, or McCarthy.
It would have been McCarthy.
Yeah. So the season turned to the Brown stuff right after that. They were in first place after that win the day after Thanksgiving, and then they finished DFL in the league.
Yeah.
And then lost the lottery, but came out of it with Eric Stahl instead of Marc-Andre Fleury. But I think they wanted Stahl all along.
Right.
Yeah,
I think they managed to bluff
I think that was a fair deal. I mean, I think the Canes in the end, did just fine.
Yeah. It probably came down to Stahl or Nathan Horton, whose career was unfortunately cut short. But
yeah. Oh man.
So we've been season ticket holders since the 2nd season in Raleigh.
And who's your guy? All time, who's your guy?
Brindamore.
There you
go. Brindamore is the first. Brindamore's jersey, his white jersey is the first player jersey I ever bought.
Love it.
And had him sign it at one of the season ticket holder events, and it's the only signature on the jersey. And I wear it opening night every year, even when he was an assistant coach. And even now it means more now than it did then. But I know Francis was your guy, but
Yeah.
that's going back to the Whalers days.
Yeah.
In the Whalers days, I was a Rangers fan. So,
There you go.
Francis was never my guy. It was always Brindamore for me.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And let me take you somewhere. We're talking about Brindamore here. One of the things that I noticed opening night, of course, you were there, and the place they're going through the lineup announcements and stuff like that. Everything's great. Then they get to the coaches, and then they introduce Rod, and the place goes bananas.
Yep.
And there's a lot of experts in media around the league are just stunned at the response and support that one coach has. In fact, there's statements flat out that say there is no coach in any sport that has the support and connection that Rod has. Yeah. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, isn't it? Like, tell me what it was like to be there in the middle of that.
Look, it's that response is no different from each of the first 4 years where he was introduced as the head coach. And I honestly, I didn't want him as the coach, not because I didn't think he was capable, but he had been through the Kirk Muller and the Bill Peters and the Paul Maurice years, and it's like, you've been an assistant coach. Either these guys don't value your input or you're part of the problem too. And if you're going to take on a team and continue the same old nonsense, you're going to tarnish your legacy. And that's something I didn't want to see.
Right.
Good point.
But, he's a Hurricanes lifer. He came here, and the story about when he came here with just the suit on his back and dress shoes, and they went to pick him up at the airport and the whole thing. And he didn't complain when he got stripped of the captaincy. He didn't grouse in the media, and none of that. And then he stuck around at the end. A lot of former players stick around. The alumni game is full of guys who have stayed in the area. Even Greensboro guys like Stephen Rice, for heaven's sake. I don't think Rice ever played a game in Raleigh, but he stuck around. And he's always been in the community. My oldest daughter danced with one of his older kids. And, Brindamore is sitting there at, Memorial Auditorium in Raleigh looking at a dance recital, signing autographs. Yeah, it's just he's always been here. And if he wasn't coaching, I tell people, it's like, well, Dundon's going to cheap out and he's not going to pay him, and Brindamore's going to leave. And, the only coaching job that Brindamore leaves for is the junior Hurricanes coaching his kid. He's never leaving. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. And with contract negotiations coming up again, I've already seen some media. It's like, I'm not the least bit worried that deal's getting done.
No, it's going to get done. They had to get Aho re-signed. They brought in Orlov and D'Angelo and Bunting and, all of those guys. He knows he's going to get paid. He knows he's not going to be the highest paid coach in the league, but as long as it's a number he's happy with, he's not going to leave.
Do you think he'd take a certain extent?
I don't think he'd take a haircut. I don't think he'd take a haircut, but I don't think. I mean, what's the speculation that he's making? What, 1.5, 1.8, something like that? I don't think he's going to expect Paul Maurice's $5 million.
But he would certainly be worth the $5 million. I know absolutely. All of us look. All of us and all of us feel safe that he's going to still be a Hurricane and stuff. But one of the things that I've been hearing a lot of the experts again in media that you hear over and over again, they're trying to figure out why it hasn't been done yet based on the relationship. Like, how in the world
that's
is
fair point.
Not signed? And it is a fair point. Like, that's the only that's the thing that sticks in the back of my mind. I believe he'll still be there, but how is he not already signed?
Yep. Yeah, him and DJ Smith are the only coaches that aren't signed beyond this season.
Yeah. And last time he was
Yeah, last time he went into the season too, I think.
Yeah, and he wanted to make sure his assistants, he wanted to make sure his staff was taken care of, right? I mean, that was part of his deal.
Right. Yep.
He's like, I want to treat those guys right, and then I'll kind of sign probably whatever fair number you put in front of me. It's going to be Rod again. I'm not worried.
Yeah, and speaking of his staff, who saw Tim Gleason turning out to be the coach he's turned out to be?
Amazing, right? would not have guessed.
I have met him at a couple of events for his winery, and for those who don't know, Tim Gleason and Cam Ward jointly own a winery called Vineyard 36. They combine their jersey numbers.
Nice.
And as I joked to Gleason at one of the events, it's a good thing he changed his number, because otherwise it would have been Vineyard 72. But he lets Cam and their business partner do all the talking at these events. It's just, I don't think he's very comfortable speaking in public, and I didn't know that it would translate as well as it has on the ice. But it doesn't matter which six defenseman you throw out there. The penalty kill is gonna dog you all over the ice, and the defense is a huge reason why Anderson and Ronta won Jennings a couple of years ago. When you're only facing 25 shots a night, your save percentage,
and they're not necessarily
good,
quality.
They're
just 25 shots. They're not 25, primo
25
shots.
perimeter shots.
Yeah.
Unlike last night.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, let's swing into the two games that we've seen so far. Of course, it's only two games, so we really can't get too overly excited or disappointed. Let's start with Brad. We'll go Brad, Andy, me on a breakdown of what you've seen so far, what you like, dislike. Let's go through it, and we'll hopefully be able to get to one of my favorite segments before we wrap things up. So let's take a look at these last two games. Brad, what did you see that you liked? What did you dislike?
Sure. I'll try and be quick. So the big thing I liked is 5 goals in each of the two games is great. The fact that each game had 5 different goal scorers, right? They're spreading the love around. That's part of the team. That's part of what makes the Hurricanes work. Seeing Tavo net too.
Yep.
It's been said, I know RB Caniac on Twitter said it a million times, Tavo is more than just offense. He still plays a sound defensive game, and he has. But if we can get him and Aho clicking again the way you have in years past, and get those guys going, that's huge. I mean, that's some serious points there. And so far, they've shown it. Jordan Martin looks fantastic again. I think the injuries that bugged him those earlier years in Carolina must have been just hurting him worse than we realized, and now we're starting to see what he's really capable of, and it's fun to see. TA is TA. I'm gonna skip that. Orlov hasn't been as good as I would like to see from him. Although that hip check was phenomenal in game, wasn't it? But going back to the coaching, the defensive style that Carolina plays is just tougher than pretty much any other team makes it. Like, you have a lot of responsibilities. It's not just play defense. It's play defense and do all these other things, and it just takes guys a while to fit into that, I think. And so I'm not too worried right now. I think Orlov's going to be just fine long term. It's going to take him a few weeks of real games to shake it out. And the only other thing I'd say, they went 11-7 the first game. Chatfield only had 4 minutes of ice time, which I didn't really understand. If we're going to go 11-7, put Chatfield on the ice and keep TA in for the power play, because Chatfield's a much better defender. Don't put TA in and only bring in Chatfield once in a while. That doesn't make sense. They went traditional 12-6 last night. I think we're going to see that off and on throughout the year. I've been a vocal opponent of 11-7. I don't like it long term. Use it when you need to. But and like I said, if you put in Chatfield and you only roll TA out just for power plays, at least that I can understand. But you don't want to be double shifting guys too much too early in the season if you can get away with it. Overall, they're 2-0. They got 4 points. They're top the Metro, ahead of Pittsburgh, who's ahead of New Jersey, which is a little surprising. And the Rangers are down in 5th. With I think all those teams have 2 games played. I think so. The other thing that stands out, Ray, and I said this last night, the Hurricanes have 3 shorthanded goals in 2 games. There are 6 NHL teams that have not scored 3 goals.
Isn't that nuts?
Isn't that amazing?
That's bananas.
It is.
And Aho could have had another one.
And yeah, exactly. Last night, that breakaway, man, I thought he was going to go 5-hole again. But
yeah,
Andy, see, here's the thing that I like about having Andy on with us is because he was in the barn, he was in the PNC, watching the game through the TV, you only get to see the aspect that the camera shows you. And whatever the producers are doing as far as providing, replays and stuff, we don't get to see the whole thing. Andy, you were there opening night.
Yep.
What did you see? What did you like? What did you dislike? Give it to us.
So one of the advantages, I'm in the first row in the third level, so we can see the whole ice.
Nice.
I love those seats. We spent our first couple of years downstairs, then we moved upstairs to the first row, moved back downstairs for a couple of years, and then they doubled my ticket prices, so we moved back up.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The one thing that concerns me is the decision making. The defensemen are taking more risks, I think, than they need to. They're taking inopportune pinching opportunities, I guess. Orlov is going to take a while to get used to playing with D'Angelo. I think the one thing they probably should have done in the preseason is play them together a lot more than they did, if that's going to be your regular third pair. The shorty that they gave up against Ottawa, Orlov's been around long enough. He's got to get that puck deep. He can't let it be blocked by the forward. They know how they're going to be defended on the power play. It's going to be a diamond with the forward up top. You got to get the puck down low. You got to get it to the sideboards. You can't let it be blocked at the blue line, because that's when bad things happen.
No question.
I agree with Brad. I hate 11-7. I don't think Brindamore knows how to manage 11-7 properly, witnessed by Chatfield's 4.5 minutes on opening night. Last night's game, with all the penalties, I don't think we got a chance to see a lot of the fourth line. But that fourth line could be disruptive. I like the balance of the lines right now. I think Brindamore would rather cut off his left arm than separate Martinook, Stahl, and Fost, and Pesci and Shea for that matter. I'm curious to see what they're going to do when Svetch comes back, which will hopefully be when they come back home for the Kraken in a couple of weeks. To me, that's the thing that's plaguing this team so far. It's just poor decision making. The goalies are facing too many odd man rushes. The forwards are either puck watching or they're forgetting their defensive responsibilities. And, we've scored 10 goals and we're 2-0, but those are little problems against middling teams that you can't afford against teams like Colorado or, the Lightning or the Rangers or, some of the other teams that are expected to be the top echelon in the league, because you're not going to get away with it.
No.
Just to chime in real quick, Ray.
Go ahead.
I've always liked the early road trip, in part because my kid goes to bed, I can watch the whole game, which is unusual. But also, I don't care does anybody care we gave the Kings an extra point last night? I actually said it was good because that'll help keep them in contention against teams like the Oilers, right? So if we're going to have trouble, if we're going to have these lapses and they have to work into it, we're better than the West Coast where we don't. Yep. You want to win, but if you give up points, who cares? I'd rather, let's figure it out now and not against the Rangers and the Devils.
I never mind giving up the loser point to a Western Conference team, just for exactly those reasons, because, we play them twice. I don't care. We're not going to see them again until the Stanley Cup Finals. They're not costing us a playoff spot. As long as we get the extra point, that's really all that matters. And, but
It's a little like having an extra
it's
couple weeks of preseason.
yeah. And, they get to do team building exercises, although the back-to-back right out of the gate doesn't help. Although the Ducks have to travel to get home. They were in Vegas last night.
Right.
So, but it's just little things. It's uncharacteristic lapses, that we haven't seen on the scale that we've seen them so far through 2 games.
So we would, in normal cases, we would attempt to go through a little, portion of the program where we talk about who are your Canes, your, tropical storm, and who your, depression is, right? Like we like to break them up like that. We're running out of time, so we can't do that. But I'm going to bring up a little tidbit that I think we could talk about, which kind of describes what you, Andy, suggested may be a problem. The new logo or I guess mantra that the team has is cause chaos. I like the idea, but do you think that this cause chaos is perfectly describes the defense continually trying to join the play and taking big chances and just mucking things up? Like, it's the way they've been playing it. Actually, it's like they've taken the phrase to heart. You know what I mean? And I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, because it just kind of sticks with me. Cause chaos is great. They've certainly been doing that on other teams' power plays. I mean, honestly, and that's what they've done for a long time, but now they've just named it. What do you think? Cause chaos, but be careful? Cause careful chaos? Is that what we're looking for? Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I think cause chaos would have been a good social media hashtag when they were an up and coming team. But this is the betting favorite to win the Stanley Cup. So excuse me. So cause chaos. I don't know, but yes, on the ice it looks chaotic at times. Aho and Jarvis have played together a long time. They spent most of last season together. Nate and Kotkaniemi have played together for a long time. But it looks uncoordinated at times, and Aho, 5 goals last night. How many secondary assists were there? How much of it is coming from outstanding individual play rather than a coordinated team effort? And I know we're nitpicking, and they're 2-0 and 10 goals in the whole thing, but I would have expected a higher level of coordinated team play from a Brind'Amour team. And they only added a couple of new pieces. It's not like a wholesale roster swap like they did a couple of years ago. They brought in 3 guys, one of whom was here 2 years ago, and the system hasn't changed. But Bunting and Orlov especially, has been around long enough that should have just been plug and play.
Yeah,
and I'm not seeing that.
Brad, what's your take?
Yeah, cause chaos, but shut the back door. Maybe would have been a more accurate slogan.
Oh my God.
Last night,
cause chaos, but defensive responsibilities first. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well as cause chaos, but I think in some ways, maybe this is the year that they do cause some chaos, because Andy's right. Like, they're a front running team. Business as usual is not a good hype slogan to use, which is what it should be. But they've added more grit. And Ray, you and I have talked about this repeatedly. Tampa Bay is the perfect example. Highly skilled, would get to the finals, would get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they would lose Stanley Cups until they got a little messy, right? Till they brought in some weight and started throwing bodies around. The Hurricanes have reached the point. obviously. Brendan Lemieux has more points than penalty minutes, folks. And
it might be the only time you'll ever see it.
I don't know what it is.
For the last time this season.
For the first and only time in his career, but that's, I think they're going to be fine, right? We're, like you said, Andy, we're nitpicking because there's only really nitpicky things. Like the backdoor thing needs to get fixed. And you're right. They don't look cohesive, but it's game 2, right? And as much as we've all been waiting for it and we know how things should roll, they still got to get together, right? They still got to, you got to fit Svech back in. That's going to shake up the top 6 for sure.
Yep.
So, sometimes it's just good to get a good start in terms of points, even if things aren't clicking the way you want, because we all know that you can hit a cold streak in the middle of the season and start dropping fast.
Yeah.
So,
I think,
it's going to be fun.
And I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think, one of the things the final 18, 19 skaters didn't play together until the last preseason game.
Yeah.
I think having the split squad game, and a lot of teams did that. I know Nashville had a split squad game against Florida, and the Panthers had that one against Nashville, and then they played their split squad against us. But having all of those guys in camp right until the end, I know that they split it up into like the practices into the NHL group and the other guys group. And then, everybody in the other group pretty much got whacked. But that, I don't think that gave them a lot of opportunity during the preseason to work together as an 18-player unit.
So
So now, like Brad said earlier, I agree. I like the idea of getting the 5-game or the West Coast swing or the long road trip out of the way, because it gives them an opportunity to bond as a team, but they're also going to be playing together a lot away from the prying eyes of the vaunted Raleigh media. I think that's a benefit. And maybe tonight against a team that's supposed to be one of the worst in the league, they figure things out. Zegras I think he missed all of the preseason. I don't think he played at any preseason games. The Ducks are still missing Killorn. Leo Carlson is out. So, maybe tonight, and their goalies are bad. So maybe tonight they get back on their horse and close the back door, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Like Brad said.
And it's a really quick turnaround, late night last night and then a little bit earlier. So 2 games in 24 hours is tough. Yeah. I can hear right now some of our fellow podcasters giving us grief and chirping us now as we're talking about this, saying, guys, you won. What are you complaining about? The thing is, we now have a right to hold the team to a higher standard than in previous times. And while we love victories, we also are aware of the shortfalls. And that's really what it comes down to. Yeah. It's difficult, but we're
truth tellers.
Again, we are truth tellers.
But I'm not. Yeah. If the Canes want to pay me, I'll say whatever they want. But
right, exactly.
I don't want to gloss
be honest
over
about my
things.
opinion.
I think Brindamore's look post game says it all.
It did.
He was
this team. No, him calling it the worst game ever. That's a little bit of hyperbole, because the first 3 months of his tenure after they got back from the trip were not all that great. But he was not happy.
He was hot. And you know what? That's what you expect out of a coach, right? And that's what we expect out of Rod. We just expect more. This has been a great program. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. We've spent a lot of time sharing comments between us, in the message boards and stuff.
We'll have to have you back. We have more time too. There's a lot more hockey knowledge here, folks.
There is no question
of hockey.
I love that. Brad, we've had a fantastic show. So Andy, thank you for joining us. And Brad, we've covered a lot. We even dipped into the 70s for some great hockey. I gotta love that. That was
I might have been I might have been living in New Jersey when Andy was going to those games.
That's fantastic.
I was like 6 months old, but
great show. Loved it. And there's so much that we talked about, but there's probably something that I'm missing. Brad, can you help me out?
play Jalen Chatfield. Oh wait, no, go Canes.
Oh yeah, go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.